Hello, everybody, and welcome to Right Club. It's so long since I've seen you, Mary.
I
Wasn't,
know.
wasn't that
I've
amazing?
missed you.
I've missed you. Wasn't that amazing, Mary?
Yeah, it was a very interesting and very good session.
Oh my goodness me. So Kirsty, welcome back, Kirsty. How did it all go? How did all the conference and everything go, Kirsty?
Yeah, it was really good. It was such a great experience. And I have a whole new gang over in NZ now. And so it was fun. But what a beautiful place. Like I really loved it over there. But yeah.
It's beautiful, as is the wonderful Susan joining us from New York City. Hello, it's lovely to see you, Susan. Good evening to you.
Good evening, everybody. Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Oh, we're thrilled to see you. Saji is back, the legend himself. How are you? Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Oh, we're excited to see you. Wonderful Jelly's in. Queen Sue's in the house. Josh is back with us. Lovely Susan joining us from Jamaica is in. We love seeing you, Susan. Good evening to you. And Damien, you've had an argument with a chainsaw. What has occurred?
This is my summer hair. It happens every year.
You look gorgeous, but my goodness me, that was a little bit startling. So is it much cooler, Damien?
Yes, it's much nicer now.
Fantastic. Well, we're thrilled to see you, and beautiful Dina's joining us. So the gang's all here. We're terribly excited. Good morning, Dina. Lovely to see you. So team, welcome to Right Club. I'm at the Waterfront campus, the Waterfront campus of CDU, and from our colleagues from Digital Office Hours, we actually had a visit from the Vice Chancellor heading upstairs at Digital Office Hours, which was quite a moment. So a lot of us are feeling still a little bit shaky about that. Unbelievable. But colleagues, let's go for 29 minutes. Let's write hard. Let's change the world. Damien, just like your haircut, let's write hard. See you on the other side. 29 minutes. Let's do it, team. Come on. Let's do it. Susan's in. Fantastic.
Where's the hell? Let's go with me.
Thanks for putting up with us, mate.
That's okay. To be honest, it's better than hearing people in my mind.
Actually, we've got about 30 minutes to go. Thanks, mate. Jeez, years.
Frequent there on, yeah. Yeah, they're looking at. No, it's my. It's complicated. Yeah. No, I'll take it back. See the bonus you put together.
Last minute, colleagues.
Don't worry, it doesn't be
Colleagues, we are done. Ooh. Look at Kylie's face. All right, we'll go straight to Kylie. I was working with you, Kylie, through that one. So Kyle's, now what were you working on this week? I didn't ask you. What are you working on?
Nothing really exciting. After another couple of rejections for my paper, I'm looking for more journals to send it off to. So just checking which ones are Q1, checking all that sort of stuff. And yeah, all good. It's just mind numbing stuff, but I think I've got another 2 that I get hit it on. So
Yeah.
just keep
and-
putting it in and
Yeah. And
play
look,
the hokey pokey.
in your field, probably the ranking thing matters a bit. Same when we're talking with our Josh. But do check the directory of open access journals, darling, and triangulate it with, say, a Schmargo and see how you go.
Yeah, I'm trying to find, I'd like to do it open access. So there's a few in that the uni can support us to do open access, but I went into the directory of open access and it is hard because being such a novel engineering and this and just trying to find one where it might fit into, I'm struggling with that. So, but it's all good. I just keep putting it in. It's the hokey pokey. See, Jess, just see the hokey pokey.
And darling, you just keep doing that. It'll happen. It's not all it's simply about just having a go, and then that article finds the right audience. That's all it is.
Yeah. And I'm not too stressed because I know you've got to have one published, which I have. So I've done that. So I've ticked the box. Now I'm doing everything else and just chucking this one about. So.
Oh, good on you, Carl. Well, we're absolutely with you, and let's see how that progresses, because engineering is obviously a huge tent, and there are some really innovative interdisciplinary paradigms in engineering, but often not in the Q1 journals.
No,
That's
and
what's causing the problems.
And being around a conceptual framework, it isn't really full research. It's just a new theory. So it's sort of, and the feedback from the other journals was it wasn't against anything. It was just not exactly engineering education because it captured all these other people. So if I don't do that, do I just tweak it that I just ignore all the other people, which is what I don't want to do, and just write it for engineering people? But I don't think it's not just them in regional areas.
Oh, Kyle's is unbelievable. Let's go straight to Josh, who's feeling your pain clearly with a lot of his quant work as well. So, Josh, what were you writing on, and what's your vibe for our Kyles?
I think, yeah, it's just something you got to do, isn't it? Constantly looking at journals. I think you do accumulate some good wisdom over time, though, and I think you get a lay of the land eventually. I'm starting to get there now, where some things are familiar. I have better ideas of it at the start. Yeah, so today I was working on, I finally got ethics approval. I'm working with a retired adjunct professor, and that's been really fun, both being in quite liminal spaces. And she's done a lot of work in the past looking at the proportioning of marks in undergraduate students between coursework and examination, and tweaking that and checking how that affects pass rate. So quite spicy data. And we're doing that at the moment with first year chemistry units. So looking at cohorts where they do need to have a huge amount of first year knowledge. And so it links in a lot with that Academically Adrift book that I learned about through you, Tara, looking at how standards have slowly dropped in university settings, and using this data as sort of, another slice of that puzzle. Yeah, and so we're analysing that, but I spent the time writing up kind of my thoughts around it, and trying to get down my ideas of, reconciling that with the fact that it's, and how that links in with widening participation,
Yeah.
etc., and all the issues and intricacies around that. Yeah.
Oh, Josh, that is going to be such a valuable piece of research to look at. I mean, I'm obsessed by, and we've got no proper data, what happened to the hard sciences post-COVID, right?
Yes.
And for people in my sort of business at a doctoral level, we're desperate to find out what happened at first year.
Yes, yeah. And so all we're doing, it's a neat little, really easy thing where we just adjust the percentages artificially, and then look at how the pass rates change through that adjustment. And what we found with the chemistry is it's similar to what's been found in first year nursing, anatomy, physiology, etc. That coursework gets the students through, which most people know, but there just hasn't been the data out for that yet. So we're trying to get that out and then talk through, what the implications of that are.
Oh, that's unbelievable, Josh. We're that excited we could explode. Damien, no pressure, Damien.
Yeah, it's a hard act to follow. I'm working on a chapter of my thesis on television as a distribution medium and its relationship to LGBT representation. And today was looking at a section. There are a heap of television biopics about queer people in Australia in sort of around sort of 2014 to 2018. And I talked to a few people who made them, and they talked about their sort of thinking behind television instead of, say, a theatrical release, and television's ability to kind of reach beyond the kind of converted, and for people to see these real life Australian stories about queer people and understand them and change their hearts and minds. So it's kind of using that, because I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to write about distribution yet, except that it changed.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a setup of why television as a distribution medium mattered, particularly at the beginning of the period I look at, and how that sort of change is really significant.
Oh, Damien, that's amazing. I mean, when I taught TV studies 20 years ago, it was always a precious medium because it was domestic. And that which is domestic was configured as, feminine, as unimportant as everyday culture. And yet when one gets into domestic media, particularly pre the proliferation of Web 2, understanding the filaments of that domestic media, it is transformational, it is pedagogical, it teaches in the home.
It does. And it's the thing I find most interesting about it. And you see these debates between people who make film and make TV and the people who live between both, is that while they're both commercial, the commercial influence and the kind of need to please lots of different kind of masters in television is so much bigger, and there's so much more negotiation. There's so many more steps of going, this is how I'm going to convince you, I'll appeal to your audience. And that hasn't gone away in the streaming age. And so there's sort of creating a bit of a realization. And the people who make films are now more beholden to that in the streaming age because they're all making films for streaming. And so suddenly they have all these masters they didn't have before.
Oh, did anyone? I mean, I always feel smarter after I've talked with you, Damien, because again, you're just going to change how I see the world for the next several years. Thank you, Damien. That's fantastic. And again, Kirsty, no pressure. You're all frightening today. Good morning, Kirsty. Post-conference, what were you writing on, darling?
Right. So I'm working on my second argument, my second article on effective climate change communication based on my interviews and the views of climate change communicators. And interestingly enough, I dived down into an article that was written in 2010 on the theory and language of climate change communication, which is reflecting quite scarily a lot of the findings that I'm finding, but yet there's a load of articles from 20 to 22 which are saying this is such an emerging area and we don't know anything about climate change communication. And so it's sort of like linking those things up and going, hold on, see, I thought this was common sense, but then articles were telling me it wasn't. Now I've come across one written by quite prolific writers that is saying, hey, we're talking about this in 2010. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet, but it's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I'm feeling excited, if that makes sense.
See, this is the importance of reading. It's so easy to claim, oh, I'm being terribly edgy and innovative when 300 great people wrote about it 15 years ago. Just you haven't read it. Kirsty's read it.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing.
Oh, that's brilliant. And Kirsty, just if it's of use to you at all, one way to see who did use it is go to those 2010 articles in Google Scholar and click cited by and see who did use them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
What disciplines? I mean, I'll be fascinated. So you can report back next week. Let us know. Should we go to our favourite human, Sajin, mate? How are you going? What were you writing on this week, you superstar, you?
Hello.
Hello.
I've been busy up to my neck this week. It's very hard to, yeah. I met my supervisors and I met Phil and Gabby, and Phil gave me a feedback on title, and even I like it. I like it because now I'm just trying to look at the thesis from a different angle, and maybe just criticizing the method that I'm using, or just finding the limitation of this method. I mean, I'm really interested in, because I believe that in the sports science, that's the time to be more precise. And by the way, I'm just trying to finish the introduction of the first study, and I just review all of the articles, work on women weightlifters, and I realized that they've used different, they compare different weight classes. Some of them they just analyze one weight classes, and I said, okay, there are too many gaps. Too many gaps.
This is brilliant, mate.
Yeah.
And so your other supervisor will always say to you, put the problem into the work. So what you've discovered a gap, and when you find a gap, it's a gift. So start to write about the gap and the inconsistent data sets, the patchy data sets, and how, to be honest with you, when I read your thesis, your methodology is your original contribution to knowledge. And that's rare and that's spectacular and very rare in sports science. So you are an absolute blessing, mate. You keep doing that work, okay?
Oh, yeah, why not?
Why not? Because you're brilliant. Oh, mate, you're a superstar. You are a gift to us. Queen Mary, how are you going? It's been a hell of a morning already, Mary. Good morning from Western Australia.
It has been a hell of a morning, and it's been very interesting. At the moment, I'm working towards my milestone 2, and I'm wrestling with my writing style. I majored in Indigenous studies and not in history. And I have found some really interesting stuff in the archives that I have written up, and what I've written up will probably end up in my thesis, my master's thesis. But how to present it for the milestone 2 is interesting. And I sort of wanted to talk to Susan, Susan in New York about it. You find this stuff in the archives, and then you have to think about how you present it. How do you make, it shows a certain pattern of this Indigenous Wadandi group resisting settlers in a very passive way, but misleading settlers during a massacre. And I'm sure, and the archives themselves were written by the perpetrators of the massacre. So it's just a very interesting and obviously conflicted source, but it says some really interesting stuff. And I'm just wrestling with how to present it, how to write it up, and also how to present it in my milestone 2. So I have had a suggestion from one of my supervisors who's Indigenous to do it more graphically. Like I put up some maps and say, this is what happened, and this person was here, there, these people were here at this, and then the next this happened, so I can explain it more easily. So, and she also said, look at John Maynard's writing, because he's a very prominent Indigenous researcher here in Australia. And she said, your writing is quite unique, so have a look at his as well, because it's a good style.
That's absolutely
so I'm looking
brilliant.
at him.
Oh, so you're doing amazing work. You're doing multimodality, which is fantastic. But you're also what I was taught about 30 years ago, Mary, which is almost called counter writing. So you've got the source and you read against it. You counter write to the sources. But let's go to Susan herself, the legendary Susan in New York City. Obviously you're doing this incredible, innovative, tough archival work, Susan. What advice would you offer, Mary?
In addition to what the other person had mentioned about the graphical, whatever, I would also be sure to include a timeline for when these things happened. And I would also be sure to point out as you're writing that the people who are telling the story that you're writing were the perpetrators, because that is an important thing for people to know and for the readers to know and understand. And if you can have, I don't know if you have this or not, but if you have a story about the same incidents or whatever from the Indigenous people, I would be sure to include that as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the timeline will help you to do, is to look for inconsistencies. If somebody is, I won't use the word lying. I've seen a lot of that. But if someone, let's say they're confused about what time this happened or what year this happened, a lot of times in the 19th century, they didn't write about things on the spot. They may have written about them 20 years later. Paper is expensive, pen and ink, they're not easy to come by, and literacy was not 100%. So they may have written about these things 20 years later. People may misremember certain things, but to the degree that you can have a timeline that has what, these people have written and said, as well as find some other sources that might collaborate what they say or disprove what they say, those things help.
I think that's brilliant. Look at playing with time, Mary. Having the timeline and working off the timeline is brilliant. We'll come back to Susan because I want to find out what Susan was writing on. But Gay, talk to us, darling.
Mary, the fact that these things were written by the perpetrators, you have to think about why they are writing. What is their angle?
Yeah.
What are they trying to achieve, show, cover up, justify?
Yeah, I think that's being as overt and as clear as that. I think that's a great point, Gay. Brilliant. So, Mary, good luck, because in fact you're reading between the words. You're prizing open the space between the words, and you're inserting all sorts of modalities into that. Amazing, Mary. Going back to Queen Susan. Now, Susan, you've offered us great advice for Mary. What were you writing on? How were you changing the world in that 30 minutes?
I have a research report that I'm writing for a client who wanted to know who his ancestors' slave masters were. and I found them. At first it may sound as though this has nothing to do with the work that I was doing about migration from, the East Coast to the West Coast in the Western interior of the United States. But this actually is part of it because, this is what happened. People in the Carolinas and Virginia, North and South Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, along the coast.
Yes.
During either right before and during the war and after the war, migrated westward to Mississippi.
Yes.
Following river trails and all of this. And it turned, this particular client didn't know where his father's family had come from. So he hired me to find them, and I found them, and I found out how they wound up from the Carolinas and Mississippi to Mississippi. And what I'm doing is writing up the research. His ancestors were inherited. They were bought. Then, as the original owner died, he willed them to his wife and his kids, and that meant the family got split up. The client's family was split up. Then, when the wife and kids passed on, they willed the new offspring to their offspring. And then the latest generation, who were slave owners during the war, they could no longer support slaves, but they tried anyway. So they would do things like sell. This is one of those instances where I found a slave master, a young woman, who was forced to sell, I use the term forced, but who sold one of her female slaves away from the female slave's would-be husband and children. And then after the Civil War, from state to state, after the war, they spent a lot of time trying to recombine their family. And the father, of this particular ancestor didn't get back with his original kids. He'd had 13 more, since then, but he didn't get back to his original two kids until 20 years after they were split up. And I think they were split up when they were around 10. So they were like in their 30s, when they saw their father again, 20 years later. But anyway, that's what I was writing.
Well, this is a powerful, powerful story to tell. I don't know about anybody else. That's got me nicely focused for the day. It reminds you what matters and what doesn't, Susan. I thank you, as always, for joining us so late at night. You're a legend. Should we go to Ruth? Ruth. Hello, Nemesis. How are you? How are you going, Ruth?
I'm good, but I don't know how I have this reputation of being your nemesis.
No, well, you see, you're smiling at me now. It's normally like, hello, Tara.
This is Right Club. It's serious business.
It is. No, darling, how are you going and what were you writing on your superstar?
I'm good. I know that every week I seem to be working on ethics. I'm working on ethics again this week, but it's a different application. So I've just been looking through things that have already been written about this project and seeing what can be repurposed for the ethics application. So that's what I've been working on.
And actually, you look quite buoyant. So I think it's going quite well.
I mean, it's coming together more easily than I thought it would. So that's good.
You're the best, Ruth. And we'll go to your friend in health, the legendary Jess. Jess, it's been a hell of a morning, girl. What were you writing on?
Okay, so kind of like Kylie was talking, Kirsty was speaking about earlier, about linking things together. So you all remember last week, the last couple of weeks, where my research was sort of published by other people. I've sort of flipped that, and I'm rewriting it as the paper now that kind of, it's the opposite of a gap. So it's not a gap. It's that I've found that similar things are written by lots of people around the place. And I'm going to pull it all together and say, well, they're all trauma-informed. It all comes under an umbrella called trauma-informed care, patient-centered care, family-centered care, community-based health care, self-care. It's all the same thing. So people, when I present this, it won't be, well, this is just another model we have to incorporate. No, actually, you're doing a lot of the stuff already. this is how it all fits together. And we can, instead of calling them different things, let's just put them all in one.
So we're going meta.
Yeah. Oh, what? No, that's huge.
Yeah.
You
it
mean
is.
meta-analysis, is it? Is that what I'm doing? I don't know what I'm doing, Tara.
Yeah, you are. No, well, remember, there's a lot of metas beyond meta-analysis. Don't worry, there's a lot of
Okay.
meta meaning higher. So
Okay.
you're actually on top of the analyses and you're actually doing a topography of trauma-informed practice.
Wow, that sounds really smart. I'm going to write that down.
That's
because I didn't know
really
what I was
smart.
doing.
You are
I
really.
was just putting all the jigsaw, the mess together that I'd found.
My late husband, Jess, if it helps you, always used to say, I mean, I'm an idiot, but the only thing he said that I did well, he said lots of things, but I think I did well was I saw connections that no one else saw. And you do the same thing. Okay. That's a very, very special intelligence. Go with it. Okay.
Thanks, Tara.
You're amazing. The legendary Gay. I'm running out of time. Gorgeous Gay. What were you writing on, Superstar? Oh, sweetness. Can I Gotcha.
I have been dealing with some really nasty bullying, intimidation, harassment, even fraud in the workplace, and get stuff in yesterday. I'm absolutely exhausted today, and today's session of writing was writing up 80-year-old stories of people who are now dead, who cannot hurt me, and it's just cathartic. It was just lovely to write this up.
Sweetheart, we're all with you. I can hardly speak. I'm worried. You are an amazing human being and you're managing the unmanageable, Angel. All right. So we're all here for you. We're not going anywhere. You'll see us every week. We care for you and we walk with you, guys. So you enjoy the incredible work you're doing with these 80-year-old data sets and make them dance and make them speak in our present. And that's meaningful. And all this other stuff, Angel. Together we'll walk with you through that, okay?
Thank you.
Oh, sweetheart.
Let's see with my cohort that the number of people who got out of the army as soon as they possibly could after they were called up to full-time duties. Self-inflicted gunshot wounds. I'm sick. I'm needed at home. It was a huge number of my cohort of doing this. This is kind of mind-blowing.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
That's
unbelievable. But the work you're doing is spectacular and it's important. Colleagues, I'm conscious of the time. I was trying to get through, and of course the legendary Max. Has anyone else been obsessed by Max and the cat? I've been. Max, hi. Max, I love the cat. Max, hi.
Hello. Oh, could you hear me?
I can. Are you going well? What were you writing on, beautiful Max?
First, hi. I learned about Tara through the Flinders University vlogs, and I'm an undergraduate student about to start my master's. And I'm an international student, and English is my second language. So I've had problems writing. So I saw about this session on your website and dropped in, and I love it. Thank you.
Oh, well, Max, you stay with us. We're terribly excited to support you on this big moment in your life. We're thrilled. And I'm completely obsessed by that cat. So, Max, you join us whenever you feel like it. We're about to share a final moment with you, Max. We call her the finisher because she's finishing and she's on basically her last chapter now. So here she is. Dina, tell us what you're writing on, gorgeous one. Kylie and I are so obsessed by you. We're just waiting for this ending. I can see Kylie's face going, come on, Dina.
Well, honestly, I don't have any good thoughts to share. I'm actually confused, Tara. So on your YouTube, you said the danger of prolonging the PhD is because the literature changes. Yes. And it's very true for my condition because after the COVID hit, there's suddenly a lot of very, very good articles about resilience after COVID. So now I'm having this abundance of abundance of articles that I need to sort through, because when I did my COC, it was before COVID, and it was in the 6th month of my candidature. So now it's how do you feel confident that you have the appropriate amount of literature review? Like
How do you stop? Yeah. Yeah. So Dina, what I would do, and you can see why I beg students to finish quickly. People think I'm mad and I'm destroying people's lives. One of the reasons is I'm saving you months, nay, years of your life because of the literature review and thousands of other problems. Dina, in terms of your project, very straightforward solution. In your literature review, the final section of the literature review is COVID, post-COVID literature, and then make a selection, say 15, pick 15 that particularly focus on community and disaster management. And I would have that cluster, and then I would then, that will do you, and then we'll use that for the rest of the thesis. But say about 15, have it in its own section and say exactly what you've told us, Dina. So COVID happened, and then there was this infusion of literature in all sorts of different areas in disaster management, but this particular slice about community and disaster management is what I'm specifically interested in. So pull that out of Google Scholar and do that for me.
Okay.
Is that
I'll do that. Thank you for that. I'll do that. Yep. Thank you.
We are so proud of you. Also, colleagues, we've had an amazing morning. My apologies, I couldn't get to the wonderful Susan and Jelly, my darling ones. You're fantastic. I'm about to head up where the Vice-Chancellor's heading up to, VCAC, the Vice-Chancellor's Advisory Committee. So I will, but colleagues, thank you for the wonderful morning that we've shared, the wonderful time that we've shared. Max, you are so welcome. We are thrilled to have you as part of us. And Dina, you've got this. Write me that section and you're finished. Colleagues, see you soon. See you next week. Thank you for your time.
Have a nice pickup from the airport.
Oh, thanks. See you soon. Bye-bye.